And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Monday, October 21st, 2024. And we start out our outlook with the state of the sea ice, and ice has begun to develop across areas of the Arctic and down into areas around Kotzebue and the corner there of Norton Sound, Koyuk area. However, we have a powerful early season winter storm. This frontal system is pushed inland. It's creating gale and storm force southwest and then westerly winds. So this ice will be breaking up. And again, it's going to really disrupt the early ice development we've seen so far here in the month of October. The reason being, this low pressure system as of Thursday morning bottomed out around 955 millibars along the eastern Russian Arctic coast. This low is going to then just kind of ride along the area between Cape Lisburne off of Wainwright and Point Lay on up toward Utqiagvik as we go through the next 24 hours. The initial front is already pushing later tonight into early on Tuesday morning, already toward the Alcan border, with a weak secondary low developing in the northern portion of the Gulf. And by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, we still have that main low just near Wainwright, but again, winds are going to turn more westerly into Norton Sound. As a result, this frontal system sags further southward, colder air coming in behind this system. And then by Wednesday afternoon, the original low is all the way up here off the Canadian Arctic coast. And we have a second piece of energy, a secondary low coming down across the Bering toward the Alaska Peninsula for midweek. This one will not be as strong as the one that is currently causing the problems, but nevertheless, the weather pattern stays active. Looking at areas of the Panhandle for Tuesday, south-southeast winds, strongest there, Lynn Canal 30 knots, gust to 40 knots. Also will be some rain and snow pushing inland here across northern areas of the Panhandle up here where the colder air will be in place. For the outer coast, southwest winds 15 to 20 knots south of Sitka. South winds 25 knots as you go west of Sitka, outside of Gustavus and up south of Yakutat, turning more easterly toward Cape Suckling. And then on Wednesday, winds will generally be southeasterly within the inner channels at 15 knots with waves 2-3 feet. Westerly winds 15 to 20 knots common along the outer Gulf Coast, except northwest 10 knots there at Cape Suckling. Waves generally around 9 feet or so. For the northwestern Gulf and into Cook Inlet, strongest winds off the Kenai Peninsula, lower Cook Inlet, generally west-southwest winds 35 knots. Look for 20-knot westerly winds within Prince William Sound, and the waves highest 10 to 13 feet here, lower Cook Inlet and outside there of the Homer Spit. And then for Wednesday, winds will continue westerly, 35 knots, lower Cook Inlet, Kennedy Entrance area, with waves 9 to 10 feet. Winds will become northwesterly within Prince William Sound, 3-foot waves. Variable winds in the area between Kayak Island and Hinchinbrook Entrance, and upper Cook Inlet, look for west winds 15 knots. Now across Kodiak Island and much of the Alaska Peninsula, generally west winds 25 to 30 knots, waves 5 to as high as 8-9 feet here, Shelikof Strait. On the Bering side, those 30-knot westerly winds will kick up waves right around 12-13 feet, so definitely more wave action there. Wednesday, winds will be westerly 25 to 30 knots across Kodiak Island, extending back through Bristol Bay. And as we drop further southwestward along the Alaska Peninsula, winds will be southwesterly 25 to 30 knots, highest waves 8 to 11 feet on the Bering side, generally 5-6 feet on the North Pacific. For the Aleutians, eastern Aleutians for Tuesday, west winds right around 25 knots. Becoming southwesterly, Atka, Adak, westward, increasing to 30 knots once you get west of Kiska toward Shemya. And then on Wednesday, look for southwest to west winds 30 knots throughout the eastern and central Aleutians. They'll become more west-northwest back toward Kiska and Shemya. That's associated with that secondary low that'll be dropping across the lower middle Bering as we go through midweek. Look at these winds on Tuesday. We have gale force winds westerly, 35 to 40 knots. That's going to create High surf, push a lot of water up into Norton Sound, which isn't good for areas there on the east end. Unalakleet on up toward Koyuk and Shaktoolik. We'll see some high water levels overnight this Monday night into Tuesday morning, with high tide could be as high as 10 to 13 feet above the higher normal high tide. That's why there are coastal flood warnings for this area. We have coastal flood advisories that extend all the way down into Bristol Bay as a result. Waves, once you get out in the open waters, anywhere from 15 to over 20 feet, especially up there towards St. Matthew. For Wednesday, we have winds, they'll come down a bit. Westerly still 20, 25 knots into Norton Sound. Waves 5, 6 feet. We're looking at, here's that low circulation, that secondary low that's going to be coming across St. Matthew and just northeast of the Pribilovs, with winds as high as 30 knots from the southwest out ahead of that system. 12-foot waves there around St. Paul and St. George. For Tuesday, we have the strongest winds here in the vicinity of the Bering Strait, lower Chukchi, westerly winds 35 to 40 knot gales. Again, a number of locations along these coasts are going to see the water level several feet higher than the normal higher high tide. And that does not include wave run-ups, because there will also be that surf action that could cause beach erosion. Waves north of St. Lawrence Island could be north of Gamble. They're 18 feet, generally running 10, 12 feet within the lower Chukchi Sea. As we head further north, winds southerly 25 knots along the Arctic coast, Utqiagvik through Kaktovik, with waves 4 to 5 feet. And that's again why that early ice development is going to get broken up pretty good here with this storm. By Wednesday, winds will be west-northwest, 25 to near 30 knots, eastern Arctic coast, dropping down through the Chukchi Sea, north-northwest winds 30 knots, 7 to 8 foot waves, and then passing through the Bering Strait on the west side of the Seward Peninsula off of Wales, Port Clarence, Nome. Winds will generally be northwesterly, 25 knots, falling back off to 15 knots north of St. Lawrence Island in the vicinity of Gamble.